Stuck with my beautiful alien roommate during mating season. An unexpected encounter, HFY Reddit. Evan stepped off the shuttle into the quiet of the research station. The cold metal walls reflected the faint lights above, and a low hum came from the machinery that ran day and night. He had expected a simple assignment, one where he could fix equipment, check readings, and enjoy some peace. Instead, he was greeted by the kind of silence that felt almost alive, as if the station itself was watching him. He dragged his luggage down the narrow corridor, scanning the room numbers until he reached his assigned quarters. When he opened the door, he froze. The space was neat, minimal, and surprisingly modern. A single bed, a desk with a hollow screen, and a small kitchenette. But what caught his attention was the figure sitting on the edge of the bed. She looked up. Her skin had a pale, faint shimmer under the station lights, and her eyes were large and golden, almost glowing. Her hair moved slightly, though there was no wind. She studied him calmly, like she had been expecting him. Evan swallowed, realizing the files he had seen on the station's assignment board did not mention another occupant. I'm Evan. I was assigned this room, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. She tilted her head. I am Lyra, you are expected. I did not think it would be so soon. Her voice was smooth, with a soft musical quality that made Evan's throat feel dry. Okay, he stammered. I guess we'll be roommates then, she nodded. Roommates, yes. The way she said it, like it was a label heavier than normal, made Evan uneasy. He dropped his bag and looked around the room, hoping for a normal human detail to reassure him, but everything was subtly alien. The way the bed seemed slightly molded to her shape, the way the lighting adjusted when she moved. There was no question, she was not like anyone he had met. Where are the other residents? Evan asked, trying to break the silence. They left, she replied simply, eyes fixed on him. Before the season began. The season? He asked, his stomach twisting. What season? Lyra glanced away, her expression unreadable. The cycle of my kind. It comes once in our life pattern and it cannot be ignored. Those who cannot manage it leave. The rest remain. Evan's pulse quickened. He had heard rumors about the research station housing multiple alien species, some of them powerful, but he had never been told he would be living with one during their mating period. He had imagined shared quarters with another human or maybe a small, friendly alien, not someone whose biology might make her unpredictable. I think I need a moment, he said, stepping back. He dropped his hand on the door frame and tried to calm himself. So you live here alone usually. Not alone, but humans rarely stay through this time. It is difficult. Evan realized he had no choice. The station regulations were strict and transfers were slow. He could try to request reassignment, but with shuttle schedules limited and the season starting, he might be trapped for days or weeks. He exhaled and set his bag down again. Okay, I'll do my best to not be in your way. Lyra studied him closely. It is not your presence that is the concern. It is how you respond when instincts rise. Evan felt a chill. Instincts? They are stronger than reason, Lyra said softly. For my kind. The cycle affects emotions, decisions, and the mind. Those unprepared may fail or worse. He swallowed hard, realizing he was in more danger than he had first thought. This was not a situation he could leave easily. He had been chosen, or rather assigned, for reasons he did not yet understand. And Lyra's species, though graceful, clearly carried a warning in the way she spoke. The first night was tense. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the station. Evan tried to read, but every sound, every movement of Lyra drew his attention. She moved with careful precision, almost gliding across the floor when she went to the small kitchen to prepare something that looked like a glowing liquid. She offered him a cup. It is safe. Drink. He took it cautiously, noting the faint warmth in his chest after a sip. It tastes different, he said. It strengthens the balance, she said. During the cycle, many lose control. This helps. He nodded, not fully understanding, and returned to his corner of the room. Sleep was difficult. He lay awake, hearing her breathing, noting subtle changes in the way she moved. Her pulse seemed almost visible under her skin, glowing faintly with every inhale and exhale. Evan felt a mix of awe and fear. He had read about xenobiology, about alien reproductive cycles and instincts, but experiencing it in such proximity made the science terrifying. In the middle of the night, a sharp alarm echoed through the station. The lights shifted from calm white to flashing red. Evan jumped up. Lyra was already at the wall panel, her hands moving in patterns he could not understand. "The station detects changes," she said, her voice tense. "The cycle accelerates. We must remain contained." "Contained? You mean like quarantine?" Evan asked, panic rising. She nodded. "If the station observes uncontrolled influence, it will act to isolate my kind. You may be asked to leave or to be kept away. That is dangerous for both of us." Evan's stomach sank. He was trapped. For days, maybe weeks, he would have to stay here with Lyra, with the unknown biological and emotional dangers she carried. The station's warnings made sense now. Humans were not meant to be here during this period. Yet he was. As the hours passed, Evan tried to converse with her. He asked questions about her species, about the station, about life in general. She answered, but always carefully, as if choosing words to maintain a fragile balance. "You must understand," Lyra said finally after a long silence, "that any sudden action, any misunderstanding could make this worse. Not just for me, but for you. Humans are sensitive, too sensitive for what comes next." I don't know what to do," Evan admitted. "I've never been in a situation like this." "You will learn," she said softly, "by observing, by listening, by staying calm. That is all anyone can do." They passed the hours in quiet observation. Lyra moved around the room with a grace that seemed almost choreographed. Evan noticed the small signs of change, her eyes reflecting the lights differently, a subtle tremor in her hands when she reached for objects, the way her pulse seemed to quicken and slow in patterns he could not decode. By the morning, Evan felt exhausted. Not from sleep, but from alertness, from tension. He realized he had to treat the next weeks like a trial, a survival test that involved far more than machines or equipment. He had to survive the presence of a being whose instincts could overpower reason. The station transmitted a brief message. Shuttle schedules were delayed, supplies were rationed. He was officially trapped. Evan felt the weight of it press against his chest. Lyra, noticing his expression, came closer. "Do not fear what will come," she said. "Only fear inaction, fear unawareness. You have chosen to remain. That makes you unusual." Evan could not tell if that was a compliment or a warning. He wanted to speak, to ask questions, but the words stuck in his throat. He was learning slowly that the station, the cycle, and Lyra herself were a puzzle he had no guidebook for. Hours later, Evan discovered the first small mercy. Lyra taught him to read the subtle signs of her mood, the way her breathing shifted, the slight tension in her shoulders, the glimmer in her eyes. These small things could indicate calm, agitation, or more dangerous instinctual shifts. It became a silent game, one of watching and learning, of predicting without acting rashly. Days passed. Food routines, equipment checks, and low-level maintenance filled time, but the undercurrent of tension never left. Evan felt his own instincts sharpened, his senses alert in ways he had never experienced. Every sound, every flicker of light, every small movement of Lyra's body demanded attention. He realized something. This was not merely survival of the body, but survival of the mind. Lyra's species, though alien, demanded mental fortitude. Humans, with their unpredictable emotions, were both a hazard and a potential anchor. Somehow, he understood, he had become that anchor. One evening, the station experienced a minor power fluctuation. Lights flickered, the hum deepened, and automated doors clicked shut. Lyra's eyes widened and she moved toward him quickly, her hands brushing his arm in a motion meant to steady herself. "You are here," she whispered. "That is necessary." Evan felt a strange warmth at the contact, a recognition of trust he had never expected. His fear did not vanish, but it changed into something else, a sense of responsibility, of shared survival. He was not just a human trapped by circumstance. He was part of the balance, part of the test that would determine whether both of them could make it through the cycle safely. Night returned, bringing the quiet hum of the station and the strange, unsettling presence of biological changes he could not see but could sense. Evan lay on the bed, watching Lyra move across the room, understanding that he was entering an experience that would shape him forever. He did not know what would happen next, but he knew one thing: leaving was no longer an option. And for the first time, he understood the meaning of the warning he had overheard before arrival, that some assignments were never meant to be safe, only necessary. The room was silent again, except for the soft breathing of the two beings forced together by circumstance, by biology, and by the station itself. Outside, the lights of the distant galaxy glimmered, indifferent to the small struggle inside the station. Evan closed his eyes, ready to face what came next, knowing that every instinct, every choice, and every moment of attention could mean the difference between survival and disaster. He did not yet know the full danger. He did not yet know the depths of Lyra's instincts. But he understood one thing clearly. For the next cycle, they were bound together and the station would not allow escape. The morning did not bring relief. Evan woke to the same quiet hum, but something felt different. The air in the room felt heavier, warmer, as if the station itself was holding its breath. He sat up slowly and noticed Lyra standing near the window, her back straight, her hands pressed against the glass as she looked out into space. She did not turn when she heard him move. "The cycle is advancing faster than expected," she said. Her voice was calm, but the words carried weight. Evan rubbed his eyes. "How can you tell?" "My senses sharpen, sounds become louder, light becomes intrusive." She finally turned, and he saw it clearly now. Her eyes glowed brighter than before, and faint lines of light traced along her neck and arms like veins made of stars. Evan felt a mix of awe and worry. "Is that bad?" "It is natural," Lyra replied, "but natural does not mean safe." They ate in silence. Evan noticed that she barely touched her food, while he felt strangely hungry, as if his own body was reacting to the tension in the room. When he asked the station AI for a status update, the response was delayed. "All systems stable," the AI said at last. "Quarantine level remains unchanged." "Unchanged means locked," Evan muttered. Lyra nodded. "Locked protects others from us, and us from ourselves." As the hours passed, Evan tried to focus on work. He checked power relays, inspected sensors, and ran diagnostics. Yet every task felt secondary to watching Lyra. She moved restlessly now, pacing the room in slow, deliberate steps. Sometimes she stopped suddenly, as if listening to something he could not hear. "What are you hearing?" he asked finally. "The station," she said, "and myself." Her honesty unsettled him more than silence would have. "Is there anything I should do?" "Yes," Lyra said without hesitation. "Stay aware. Do not make sudden movements. Do not raise your voice. And if I ask you to leave the room, you must do so." "And if I can't?" Evan asked. "Then we adapt," she said quietly. The station lights dimmed slightly as the artificial day cycle shifted. Evan noticed a faint vibration under his feet, like a distant heartbeat. The AI spoke again, this time without being asked. "Biological anomaly detected in residential sector. Monitoring increased." Evan looked at Lyra. "It's talking about you." "Yes," she said. "Soon it will decide whether I am a resident or a risk." That word echoed in Evan's mind. Risk. He had been trained to manage risks in machinery, in systems, in environments. But this was different. This was a living being, trapped by biology and watched by an unfeeling system. Later, Evan noticed Lyra's hands trembling. She clenched them into fists, then relaxed them again. Sweat or something like it shimmered on her skin. "Lyra," he said gently, "sit down." She hesitated, then obeyed. When she sat, she closed her eyes and focused on her breathing. Evan found himself mirroring her, breathing slowly, trying to create a calm rhythm in the room. "You do this instinctively," she said after a moment. "Do what?" "Regulate. Humans synchronize without realizing it. Your presence alters the environment." Evan blinked. "That sounds important." "It is why humans were once considered companions during the cycle," she admitted. "Once," Evan pressed. "Before fear ended the practice," Lyra said. "Too many misunderstood what we needed. Too many saw only danger." The word stayed with him. Fear. Misunderstanding. He wondered if history was repeating itself inside this small room. As the day wore on, the station experienced another power fluctuation. This one was stronger. The lights flickered, alarms chimed softly, and the temperature rose by several degrees. Evan moved instinctively toward the control panel, but Lyra reached out and grabbed his wrist. "Do not," she said sharply. Her grip was stronger than he expected. "Why?" he asked, startled. "Because sudden change triggers response," she said. "Mine." Evan froze. Slowly, carefully, he stepped back. Lyra released him and turned away, her breathing uneven. "I am losing precision," she admitted. "The cycle strips away layers. Control becomes effort." "What happens if you lose it completely?" Evan asked. Lyra did not answer immediately. When she did, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Then the station will intervene, and I will not be treated gently." That night, Evan did not sleep. He sat at the desk, pretending to read while watching Lyra from the corner of his eye. She lay on her bed, restless, shifting positions often. Sometimes she murmured words in a language he did not understand. The AI spoke again, its tone neutral but firm. Biological levels rising, containment protocols preparing. Evan stood up. "Is there a way to slow it down?" he asked Lyra. "Yes," she said. "Connection." He hesitated. "Connection how?" "Presence, attention, trust." "That's it. For now," she said. Evan sat on the floor, a careful distance from her bed. He spoke quietly, telling her about Earth. About oceans, rain, and cities full of noise. About people rushing through their lives without thinking about cycles or instincts. He talked until his throat hurt. Lyra listened. Slowly, her breathing steadied. The glow on her skin dimmed slightly. "This helps," she said. "More than medicine." Hours later, the AI reported a temporary stabilization. Evan felt relief wash over him, followed by exhaustion. But the relief did not last. The next day, Lyra woke in a state Evan had not seen before. Her movements were sharp, her eyes bright with an intensity that made him step back. "Something is wrong," she said. "The station is amplifying stress signals." As if in response, the walls vibrated. The AI's voice filled the room. "Containment threshold approaching." "Human resident advised to evacuate sector." Evan's heart pounded. "Evacuate, you mean leave you?" "Yes," Lyra said. "They will separate us." "And what happens to you?" She looked away. "That is not your concern." But it was. Evan realized it fully in that moment. He had become part of the balance she spoke of. Leaving now might save him, but it could destroy her. The station doors slid open halfway, a warning signal flashing. Evan stood between the door and Lyra without fully understanding why. "I'm not leaving," he said. The AI paused, processing. Human noncompliance detected. Lyra stared at him, shock and something else crossing her face. "You should not do this," she said. "This choice has consequences." "So does doing nothing," Evan replied. The doors stopped moving. The lights dimmed further. Outside the room, mechanical sounds echoed, systems preparing for forced action. Inside, Evan and Lyra stood facing each other, the air thick with tension and unspoken understanding. The cycle was no longer a distant threat. It was here, pressing in on both of them. Evan felt fear, yes, but also resolve. Whatever happened next would define more than just this assignment. It would test what it truly meant to be human in a galaxy that feared what it did not understand. And as the station prepared to act, Evan realized the hardest part was still ahead. The station no longer felt neutral. Evan sensed it the moment he woke. The air vibrated softly, not with sound but with pressure. It felt like standing near a storm that had not yet broken. He sat up and immediately looked toward Lyra. She was awake, sitting on the floor with her back against the wall, knees drawn close to her chest. Her eyes were open, glowing brighter than ever, and thin lines of light pulsed across her skin in slow waves. "You should have left," she said without looking at him. Evan stood slowly. "I couldn't." "That does not make it wise," Lyra replied. Her voice was steady but her hands trembled slightly. "The station will not stop, it will escalate." "I know," Evan said. "But if I leave, it escalates anyway, just in a different way." She finally looked at him. There was conflict in her expression, something raw and unfiltered. "You do not understand what you are standing in the middle of." "Then explain it to me," he said. "All of it." Lyra closed her eyes for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. "My species was not always solitary during the cycle. Long ago, we believed survival required shared presence. Not physical action, but emotional anchoring. Minds aligned to keep instincts from overwhelming thought. And humans were part of that?" Evan asked. "Yes," Lyra said. "You are unpredictable, emotional, yet resilient. That combination stabilized us, but others feared the bond. They called it dangerous." The practice ended. Evan felt anger rise in his chest. "So now the station treats you like a problem to be contained." "Yes." The station AI interrupted, its tone colder than before. "Containment protocol advancing to Phase 2. Human residents strongly advised to relocate." Evan ignored it. "What happens in Phase 3? Lyra hesitated. "Isolation, chemical suppression. If that fails, removal." "Removal?" Evan echoed. "Permanent," she said. The words settled heavily between them. Evan realized then that this was no longer just about comfort or safety. It was about survival in the most basic sense. He moved slowly and sat on the floor a short distance from her, careful not to invade her space. "Tell me what you need right now." Lyra studied him. "You are calm," she observed. "I'm scared," Evan admitted. "But I can still listen." "That is enough," she said, "for now." Hours passed in quiet tension. Evan spoke when the silence grew too heavy. He talked about ordinary things, small memories, his childhood, fixing broken machines with his father, the sound of rain on metal roofs. Lyra listened. Sometimes she closed her eyes. Sometimes her breathing slowed, matching his pace without either of them realizing it. The station monitored everything. Evan could feel it. Sensors hidden in walls, algorithms measuring heart rates and chemical signals. He imagined numbers climbing, thresholds approaching. At one point, Lyra suddenly stood. Her movements were sharp, almost violent. "It is spiking," she said. "The instinct, it pushes." Evan stood too, instinctively stepping back. "What do? We resist," she said. Together, the lights flickered violently. Alarms began to sound louder than before. The AI's voice filled the room. "Containment Phase 3 imminent." "No," Evan said aloud. "Wait. Human intervention is counterproductive," the AI replied. "That's not true," Evan argued. "You're measuring the wrong things." "Clarify," the AI demanded. Evan took a breath. "You're tracking biology, chemicals, heart rates, but you're ignoring behavior, emotional regulation, stability through interaction." There was a pause. Lyra looked at him in surprise. "Data insufficient," the AI said. "Then gather it," Evan snapped. "Delay the protocol." Another pause, seconds stretched. "Delay granted. Observation window opened," the AI said finally. Evan exhaled shakily. He looked at Lyra. "We bought some time." "Yes," she said, "you did." But time did not slow the cycle. As the hours passed, Lyra's control weakened further. She paced, her movements erratic. Her eyes fixed on Evan more often now, following him even when he tried to busy himself with small tasks. "You should not look at me like that," she said suddenly. "I'm not doing it on purpose," Evan replied. "I know," she said. "That is what makes it dangerous." The instinct was no longer subtle. Evan could feel it too, a pressure in the room, a pull he did not understand but could not ignore. He focused on breathing, on grounding himself in logic. At one point, Lyra stumbled. Evan moved forward without thinking and caught her before she hit the floor. The moment their bodies touched, the air seemed to crackle. Lyra gasped, her hands gripping his arms with surprising strength. For a second, neither of them moved. "Let go," she whispered. Evan did, stepping back quickly. His heart pounded. "I'm sorry," he said. She shook her head. "It is not your fault. The bond responds to contact." The AI spoke again. Instability increasing. Evan clenched his fists. "There has to be another way." "There is," Lyra said, "but it requires trust." "What kind of trust?" "Total," she said simply. Evan met her gaze. He saw fear there, but also hope. "Tell me." "We must accept the bond instead of fighting it," she said. "Not physically, mentally. You must stay present fully without resistance." "That sounds risky," Evan said. "It is," she agreed. "But suppression is worse." The alarms grew louder. The observation window was closing. Evan made his decision. He sat down in front of her again, closer this time, but not touching. He focused on her eyes, on breathing slowly, steadily. "I'm here," he said. "I'm not going anywhere." Lyra's breathing slowly synchronized with his. The glow on her skin steadied, no longer pulsing wildly but flowing in a calm rhythm. The AI fell silent. Minutes passed, then more. Finally, the AI spoke again. Instability reduced. Phase 3 postponed. Evan felt relief flood through him. He nearly laughed. Lyra looked exhausted, but there was something new in her expression, gratitude and something deeper. "You have altered the outcome," she said. "For now," Evan replied. "Yes," she agreed. "For now." Outside the room, the station quieted. But both of them knew this was only the center of the storm, not the end. The cycle was far from over, and the bond they had awakened could either save them both, or chain everything in ways neither fully understood. The station had grown quieter, but the tension inside the room was heavier than ever. Evan had learned that calmness could help Lyra, yet the cycle was relentless. Her instincts were no longer subtle whispers. They were waves pressing in, demanding attention, demanding alignment. Evan watched her from across the room. She was sitting on the floor, knees bent, hands resting lightly on them, eyes half closed. Every so often, her glowing lines flickered with a brightness that made him uneasy. He knew the AI was still monitoring every change, recording each heartbeat, every shift in chemical balance. "Evan," she said softly, breaking the silence, "the observation window closes soon. If we do not stabilize fully, the station will enforce containment." He nodded. "I understand. What do you want me to do?" "Stay with me," she replied, completely, no hesitation, no fear. Evan moved closer and sat cross-legged on the floor. He tried to mirror her breathing, slow and steady, concentrating on remaining calm. Lyra opened her eyes fully and studied him for a long moment, her glowing lines pulsing faintly in rhythm with her breaths. "The bond we form now is what will decide the outcome," she said. "It is mental, emotional. We do not fight instincts, we accept them, but control them together." He nodded again, though a shiver ran through him. "I'll do it." Minutes passed in tense silence. He spoke occasionally, softly, describing Earth again. Mountains, oceans, the quiet feeling of night. He noticed that Lyra's breathing gradually slowed, her glow dimming to a calmer state. The change was subtle but noticeable. The AI's monitoring systems remained silent. Then, without warning, a sudden vibration shook the floor. Lights flickered violently, alarms echoed faintly through the corridors. Evan grabbed Lyra's hand instinctively, not realizing it, and she did not pull away. For a moment, the pressure in the room increased, as if the cycle itself was testing them. "Do not panic," Lyra said quietly, gripping his hand in return. "Focus, presence, Awareness. He closed his eyes and breathed with her, feeling the rhythm of her pulse under his fingertips. Fear and instinct were rising, but he forced himself to stay calm, to remain connected to her, to anchor both of them. Hours stretched. Neither spoke much. Words were unnecessary. Presence had become the language. Every movement of Lyra's body, every flicker of her glowing lines, guided Evan's awareness. He understood her tension and adjusted his breathing, his attention, his thoughts to keep the room balanced. At one point, Lyra's eyes widened suddenly. She whispered a single word in her own language, and Evan felt the pressure spike again, a wave that threatened to overwhelm them both. "Now," she said simply. Evan held firm. They sat silently, letting the wave pass, grounding each other with calm focus. Slowly the intensity diminished. Lyra leaned back slightly, exhausted but stable. The lines on her skin dimmed to a gentle glow. "You have done well," she said quietly. "Better than I expected." Evan shook his head. "We did it together." "Yes," she agreed. "Together." The AI spoke then with a neutral tone that felt almost respectful. Stability achieved. Containment not required. Relief washed over both of them, but it was mixed with exhaustion and awareness. The cycle was far from over, and the room was still charged with a subtle tension. They had passed a critical moment, but the test was ongoing. "Tomorrow will be harder," Lyra said softly. "The final phase approaches. Our bond must hold." Evan nodded. "I understand. I'll stay, no matter what." For the first time, Lyra allowed a small smile. It was fleeting but genuine. Evan felt a rare warmth from her, something human and alien at the same time. He realized that the connection they had forged was more than survival. It was trust, something neither the station nor the cycle could impose. Night fell again. The artificial day cycle dimmed the lights, casting shadows across the room. Evan lay on the floor next to her, careful to give space but remain present. He spoke softly about the stars outside, the endless expanse, the countless worlds that had nothing to do with their immediate danger. Lyra listened quietly, occasionally responding with words he could understand, simple sentences describing feelings, sensations, small thoughts. The room, though tense, felt safer. They had created their own small universe, a space where instinct and reason could coexist. Hours passed without incident. Evan felt exhaustion weigh heavily on him, but he stayed awake, focused, refusing to let himself slip into fear or distraction. Lyra's breathing was steady now, the glow on her skin smooth and gentle. "Tomorrow, the cycle ends," Lyra said after a long silence. "And what we have begun may define more than this room." Evan did not respond immediately. He thought about everything that had happened, the fear, the instincts, the bond they had formed, the station watching them. "Then we make sure we survive," he said at last. "Together." She nodded. The lines on her skin pulsed faintly, a rhythm of agreement and understanding. The tension in the room remained, but it was different now. Controlled, balanced, a fragile piece that might be broken at any moment but real in this instant. They settled into quiet for the rest of the night, their minds connected through presence, awareness, and trust. Outside, the station remained a silent observer, waiting, calculating, measuring. Inside, Evan and Lyra had discovered a new power, the ability to face instinct not with fear, but with cooperation, to turn a dangerous cycle into a challenge they could endure together. And as the hours moved forward, the bond they had formed solidified, a fragile yet undeniable bridge between human and alien, mind and instinct, survival and understanding. Morning came with a soft glow over the station, the artificial sun casting a calm light into the room. Evan stirred first, careful not to wake Lyra. She lay on her bed, relaxed now, though the faint glow of her skin reminded him that the cycle was not completely over. He sat quietly, reflecting on the past days. Every moment had been a test, not just of endurance but of presence, focus, and trust. He realized that his humanity had been the stabilizing factor, just as Lyra had said. Being aware, calm, and attentive had made the difference. Lyra moved then, sitting up and stretching. Her eyes met his, and for a moment neither spoke. The tension that had filled the room was gone, replaced with a quiet understanding. "The cycle is ending," she said softly. "The station will soon confirm stability." Evan nodded. "We made it through." "Yes," she agreed. "But we have done more than survive. We have created something new." Outside, the station lights flickered briefly as automated systems ran checks. The AI spoke, its tone now neutral but slightly approving. "Biological readings stable. Containment not required. Human and resident bond successful." Evan allowed himself a small sigh of relief. The danger had passed, but he knew it would not be forgotten. The station, the AI, and the other residents would now view their bond as a precedent, proof that humans could anchor the instincts of her kind during the cycle. Lyra stood and walked toward him, her movements smooth and unhurried. "Your presence was unusual. Most humans would have fled or panicked. You stayed. That is remarkable." Evan felt a warmth in his chest at her words. "I stayed because I couldn't leave you, not after everything we went through." She studied him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of gratitude and something deeper. "Perhaps humans are stronger than we believed," she said quietly. The next hours passed with quiet activity. They prepared the room for inspection, made small repairs, and shared food in companionable silence. The glow on Lyra's skin had returned to a gentle shimmer, signaling full stabilization. For the first time, Evan felt that the room was truly safe. When the AI called for a report, Lyra stepped forward, speaking clearly and without hesitation. The human resident remained present, bonding successful, no containment required. The AI paused, then responded, "Observation complete, outcome noted for future cycles." Evan glanced at Lyra. "Does that mean—" "Yes," she said, smiling faintly. "It means humans may now play a role we thought impossible. Our species may survive with your kind as anchors." Evan felt pride mixed with a strange awe. He had come to the station expecting simple work, and instead, he had been part of something that could change relationships across species forever. They spent the rest of the day in quiet reflection, talking about their experiences and what had kept them calm. Evan shared memories of Earth, and Lyra spoke of her people's history and traditions. They laughed softly at small stories, the tension of the previous days slowly fading. As night approached, they stood by the window looking out at the stars. Evan realized that what had begun as a dangerous assignment had become an unexpected connection, one that bridged worlds and instincts. "The station will continue to watch," Lyra said, her voice calm but thoughtful. "But now we have proof. Humans can adapt. Humans can anchor us when the cycle comes." Evan nodded. "And we can survive it together." For a long time they stood there silent, letting the calm of the universe seep in. The bond they had formed would endure, even as the station, the cycles, and the galaxy continued their indifferent rhythms. Finally, Lyra turned to him, eyes reflecting the starlight. "Thank you, Evan, for staying, for trusting, for anchoring me. You have changed more than my cycle. You have changed what is possible." Evan smiled faintly. "We changed it together." And in that moment the station felt peaceful. The danger had passed, the cycle ended, and a new understanding between human and alien had been born. They had faced instinct, fear, and protocol, and emerged stronger, connected, and ready for whatever the galaxy might throw at them next. As they left the room together, the quiet hum of the station seemed less threatening, less mechanical, and somehow alive with possibility. The galaxy outside remained vast and indifferent, but inside, two beings had discovered that cooperation, trust, and presence could turn instinct into strength and fear into understanding.